This is the Dboys RKO1. This is not the wood or steel version. This is the RKO1 AK-74. Everything you'd come with, or everything that would come with this gun is a sling. Sling's good. It's a repro, but you can see it's pretty thick. All the hardware is steel. Wait, is it? Hang on. I feel like the hooks are, but okay, yeah. Yep, the whole thing is steel. So, I think this gun retails about $130 to $140. I got mine on eBay, brand new. Came in a cardboard box and came with like a 9.6 volt stick battery. Performance-wise, you know, all guns have to get dialed in. You have to adjust the sights to it, and then you can kind of figure out after the sights and then the hop up, which is adjusted right here, like any regular AK. You can get most of them to be fairly accurate without doing too much, other than maybe cleaning the barrel. What else? It came with a charger, some sample BBs, a cleaning rod, and then the manual. So, upon initial inspection, it seems to be a pretty good gun, only it's not. So, I'm not even sure where to start with this gun. I've got a lot of bad things to say about it. We'll start with the magazine compatibility, or rather, lack thereof. So, this won't take any of my AK magazines. I have a lot of the 7.62 variant magazines. None of them fit in here at all. The G&P AK-74 mid caps, they look like they'd fit, but they won't. And the reason for that is that this magazine catch is dimensioned just a little bit differently than any other AK, and you have to file off the tab here, either up or down or towards the wall here to get it to fit. And that's assuming that the hop-up wants to fit inside of the output hole here on the magazine. So it's really picky about the mags it takes. And other than Dboys magazines, I have not found a brand that is a drop-in fit here. And why would you want to modify all of your magazines just so they'd fit inside of a Dboys and then be wobbly in any other guns you might get? Doesn't make sense to me. Especially when there are much better alternatives for a system out there, or brand of AK to buy from. So there's a trapdoor here on the stock that you can use to put stuff into. That broke on me. That was spring-loaded. All the furniture on here is actually wood. Unfortunately, it's very cheap and unrealistic looking. Handguards are loose. And then another thing here, there's a lot of pot metal on this gun, including this gas block lever here. I mean, these parts are just so thin that I would have rather had them be made of plastic, because at least the plastic would have had some give, right? These are very brittle, very stiff, very fragile. I actually just bent it with little force. Pot metal parts include the gas block, the front sight, which has just a ton of play. It's not secure at all, right? Left and right, up and down especially. Just really shoddy dimension fit here. The whole thing is made of plastic, except for the spring underneath. Obviously that's going to be steel. But this whole assembly is just crap metal. This is steel, the gas tube, the handguard part of it. This is aluminum, or sorry, zinc alloy. The barrel is all zinc alloy. Front sight is zinc alloy. The pins are steel, thankfully. Cleaning rod is steel. But, the sling loops are pot metal too, that's great. Now the receiver and then the dust cover are steel, but that's kind of deceptive, and I'll get to that in a little bit. So you can see me just kind of fitting around the magazine catch. This entire lower part around the trigger guard is steel. This back part here is not. The fire selector and then the fire selector switch are made of steel. And then the cocking handle, the entire cocking handle assembly is not steel. In fact, you can expect this to break pretty quick. In case I haven't showed you already, I can't quite remember. To put the battery in, you push on the tab in the back, and then the battery would just go inwards, and then you'd want the switch part to come around, or the connector part to come back around here, and then that would fit in just fine. No issues with that, except that the battery compartment just a little bit tight, but I didn't have any issues with it. I don't have the battery that came with it, but you know, they're all the same really, especially at a 9.6 volt. 8.4 volt batteries are just a little bit shorter, so you might have an easier time getting those in here. And that's all about what I have to say on the inside of the gun. I will say that I have not had any issues with performance. I've been using these off and on for almost a decade, and I don't have any issues with the firing performance. But I've always had issues with the externals of the gun and then magazine fitment. And then, what else do I want to say here? Trigger is pod metal. And then, let's my collar down. Oh yeah, so the front sight is adjusted. They do include a tool here, and it sticks on, and then you press it down, and then you turn it up and down, and then you can actually adjust with a real, like an NC Star AK adjustment tool. You can fit it on here and then turn it, tighten it, and then it'll push it to the left and the right. That's cool. Not all the airsoft AKs have that, and that allows for some flexibility. Speaking of sights, it does come with this Warsaw packed dovetail rail here. I put quite a few Picatinny rails or rail adapters on these scope mounts. Didn't have any issues with that, and which is zinc alloy, by the way. I don't like it, so I don't try to think about it that much. Oh, so here's the good part of the gun that I liked, which is the muzzle brake here. The muzzle brake is initially, there's an orange tip right here, and then that's glued on, and you can just melt that off with like a blowtorch, and then you don't have to worry about damaging the rest of the flash hider. And then it's also glued in place, and then there's a little detent pin here that slots into a slot on the muzzle brake to keep it from moving around. So let me take you through that real quick here. And like I said, this is all glued in place. You have to get this thing super hot to get it apart for the first time. And then you're going to get this, so the threads on the inside, this is an adapter here, which unscrews for, there's 14mm negative threads in the bottom. And then you get this, it's like 21 or 24mm positive adapter. The threads on this are positive. And then that fits up into most of your AK-74 545 muzzle attachments here. And then this positive adapter also has a set screw that you can use to secure it. It's just a hex nut. And then the actual muzzle brake itself is secured with a detent pin right here. So the muzzle brake is pretty cool. It is actually steel. Jesus. So, pretty good. I take that off and use it on a different gun. Let me check here. I'm not sure if the positive adapter here is made of steel. Oh, wow, good. So, these are some good components for using on a different gun. I have no complaint about either of these. These work just fine. And again, when you're taking this off for the first time, you want to make sure that hex nut is loosened before you try to take it off. Otherwise, you're going to strip out the threads that are underneath it on its way out. And then another thing too is, if you're trying to put a different muzzle device on here, the barrel does stick out quite a bit further than this. And as you see, I had to cut it because I was trying to put something else on there at the time. Can't remember what it was. But that's all I have to say about the front end of the gun, I think. So that's a decent side of the gun. Unfortunately, it's a small one, but everything counts. Let me see if I can get that thing back on. So turning it to the left, because it's turning the left or the negative threads into positive, and then I'm gonna throw the positive muzzle brake back on positively, clockwise, and then I would secure it in place by letting the D10 pin go in the front, and then that would be good to go. Not a lot of wobble there at all. So everything's pinned in here. Not all the pins are steel, but I would refer to Delta 1 on whether or not the trunnions are pod metal. He probably went a bit more in depth than I did here, but I mean, either way, it's really not the best metal in the areas that you need it to be. Especially not this gas block. That really pisses me off. I'm not sure if the WS version would have steel components on it. Gas block barrel, and then this part of the gas block here. So just in the presence of all these other awesome AKs like LCT, which have seriously become more affordable as time has gone on, they're not always the $300 guns that they used to be. And then of course you have the other AK models in the 120, like the CMO 28, CMO 45, and then SEMA also makes their own models of AK-74, which use the same Inokatsu clone build factor, and those are much more acceptable for magazine compatibility across the brands. And then with that in mind, I would not buy one of these just for that fact. And I just could not recommend this to anybody at all. Again, in the presence of let me show you something. See, this is a Double Eagle M901C that I've been working on. This is a Pulsar 76. So remember how I couldn't get that magazine to fit into the Dboys AK? It's a bit tight, but it fits and feeds, right? So the little cheap entry-level AK is able to take these awesome G&P Bakelite mid-caps. Bakelite, they're not actually Bakelite, but Dboys went off and did their own thing, and really pisses me off that they did that. So, like, in the face of the SEMA clones, this thing just doesn't, it's kind of a steaming pile to me, and I'd give this thing away for free just because I hate it so much. In fact, I've got a friend that I might ship this off to pretty quick here for free. So I guess this is mostly just a rant about the body and then the compatibility. It sounds small, but it is huge to me. Again, especially for the 130, 140 price tag. But anyway, that's all I've got on this gun. I'm not even going to bother firing it just because it's so similar to the other guns, if not a bit worse, especially because of this rear sight. If you take away anything from this video, I would say look at your other options first, see what you can get on sale. Just try to dodge this thing at all costs. I would have rather had components on here be made of ABS plastic rather than the crappy pot metal that they used. See? I don't even care if I'm breaking it. I would rather throw this thing in the garbage without a second thought. So that's all I've got to say about this, and hopefully I'll be getting it as far away from me as I possibly can very soon. So I didn't cover everything on this gun. There's a lot more I could have covered, but at the same time that would have been more internal, and then that's not something I'm terribly concerned about, because you can always change out those parts, but externals are much more picky and not as forgiving. You end up spending a lot more money on the externals, trying to swap them out and fit them. End up being a totally different fit, even though they look like the same part. And it's just hours of dremeling that you waste on this gun. So that's all I got to say about it. Thank you for watching, and I hope this drives you away from this gun, or any of the Dboys AKs for that matter.